doing all? Welcome home. It is Wrap-In Monday on SuperMex Nation. Got a heavy topic for you tonight. As I posted out on the forum earlier, we are discussing Venezuela, and all my fault because I've not actually treated it and gotten to the point that we've basically skirted the issue. To be honest with you, I didn't think it'd be that much of an issue, but it's kind of one of those things that just keeps mushrooming into something other than what it should have been, you know, an election, contested or not, and now we have a bit of a mess. But we'll get to that in a second. So over the weekend, we won't do the traditional, say, wrap-in. There's plenty, but I mean, in general, for most of you guys, I think it's almost all part and parcel. We're still dealing with, you know, what is becoming a fight we're unfolding right in front of our eyes over, you know, the Mueller issue, report controversy, depending on which side you're on. I mean, that's pretty much what it ends up being. I've read the report. I've got my opinions now after reading through 448 pages. There are some things that are legit. There are some things that I don't think, you know, pass muster in terms of being something much more significant long term. Some of you will probably want to hear that. Some of you will not. But as usual, I'll quite literally give you a straight, clean, honest, and objective assessment of what it was that I read through and gotten to. So we haven't done that either. That's coming. If not by this week, then once we get our full panel back, Brother Miller's not with us tonight, and he hasn't been. He's been on vacation, but he should be back by next week. And I will also bring in at least one or two legal analysts, attorneys, from that profession to quite literally go over the wording. And because here's where it's at, ladies and gentlemen. I'll make this 100% clear. The inability or lack of ability to actually see something in black and white is quite literally what is the problem. That's the problem. Parsing words, misinterpreted meaning, subjective ideas of what is being put out is what is confusing. What is confusing to you, the average American, and what is confusing in general to people that have paid attention. We're trying to gather information out of the document. Some of the things are black and white, but again, some of them are gray. And then once we get into that gray area, you know what that means. You're going to get pulled to the left, you're going to get pulled to the right, and we may not actually get a straight, honest assessment. So I'm going to try to stay away from that as much as possible and go to the things that are factual and are legit. So that's the weekend, right? We're coming off, and so we're going to get into that. But real quickly before we get started, give you what we had last week off of Tag That Track. It's a good week. It's a good week on Tag That Track. So here you go. So you had its fun because the week prior was a beginning or genesis of what was rap and hip hop that eventually became what we know as the genre today, for good or bad. I call some of it candy rap. That's my own little personal junk. But the ones we named or had from, and that was a combination. It was me and Swainbo. Swainbo is around my age. I don't even know if he's a little older, a little younger, but he's around my age. Actually, he might be a little bit older. He's closer to 50 than I am. We're both creeping on 50. So this was white boy rap. It started as, and I said, nah, not actually. So it is non-black or African-American rap or rappers. So here you go. The first one was House of Pain, Jump Around. That's like a staple nowadays. You can't go to a club without hearing that. And I mean everywhere, not just in black households, but any household for that matter. Vanilla Ice, that's like been done so many times because he's like the quintessential, you know, white boy rapper from back in the old days. Ice Ice Baby. And then of course Beastie Boys, which I had on the week prior, but I couldn't help. So we did Paul Revere off License to Ill, their first album that broke out and, you know, took them worldwide. You had Eminem, Lose Yourself, because that one's like a necessity at this point. You know, when it comes to a white boy rapper that actually has some skills, that's the guy. Still around, still doing things. Last album was pretty good. You know, he ain't young anymore, but he's still doing it right. So Lose Yourself, and I like the lyric on that because it's a hell of a message. And I have told you guys that don't listen to rap, some of the lyrics are good. They're from the base. They're from the people. They're from poor folk living in downtrodden or difficult situation, trying to rise above and get beyond. So Eminem, Lose Yourself. And then I threw in two that were quite literally, they're not, like I said, it's not white boy rap, it's non-black or African-American rap. So here, I did this for you. For all my homeboys out there, Lightest Shade of Brown, Sunday Afternoon. That's like You want to hear just a good, cool little tune, backyard barbecue, hanging out at the park with your homies and just, listen to some good music, Lighter Shade of Brown. They didn't have a gazillion hits, but that was like a staple at the time when it came out, and it was just a great video to boot. The other, and this one also, a staple. So there's really two main rap artists that are Mexican America. Now, there are more now, obviously, but this one was kind of like, he did a song and it was called La Raza, L-A-R-A-Z-A, La Raza. It's the race, and it's a little more general than just the race, but La Raza, and that's kind of a term in Mexican American culture referring to people of the same stripe, the same background, Mexican American. So Kid Frost with La Raza, and then we did Rage Against the Machine. Swambo didn't write that down. Rage Against the Machine, because the lead singer is Zach De La Rocha, and Rage Against the Machine is like, it can be considered rock, but in essence he's rapping. So we started to go a little bit into that time period where it became rap rock, believe it or not, where there was instrumentation, and it was actually in essence a rock band, traditional 4-piece or more, 5-piece, 6-piece, a bass guitarist, drummer, etc., lead singer, and that was rap rock. So Rage Against the Machine, and then the last one, which would pretty much be like kind of the exemplar of the rap rock movement and the beginning of a red hat, before there was a red hat politically today, it was Limp Bizkit, and the song was Nookie, N-O-O-K-I-E. Did it all for the you-know-what. So Fred Durst, Limp Bizkit, they're not around. I don't think they tour anymore, but they were kind of the quintessential rap rock combination that eventually went mainstream, and they lasted a while. And I would say it's not as prevalent as much anymore. You don't have as many groups doing that. It's more, it was weird because there was a merging and a meshing, but then it basically diverged away again, which is odd because that's not normally the route music takes. There's a meshing or a merging and then it goes forward in some other form. This one basically diverged, and we don't have it as much today as we did back then, which is different. I mean, that's like an intellectual oddity within that art system of music. So those are your Tag That Track for this last week. Swainbo is back, and we'll finish up our series on education and the dream high school in America, what it should be, what it shouldn't be. We broke down classes, the offerings, courses for the curriculum. We've done quite a bit, ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned on Friday. So everything that we've done on that series of 3, 4, 5 weeks will, in essence, be in written form, if not a transcript, right? But it will be in written form, and I'll put it in the form of and he joked about it, kind of a manifesto/essay, so that somebody can read this in hard form and say, oh, okay, yeah, my high school doesn't have this, my high school has that. How come we don't have this? Why are we this size when we should be smaller, A, or bigger, B? So that's good, because what it's going to do is provide you, whether you want it or not, it's there for you, right, for posterity. You got to write things down. You got to note them. You got to memorialize them. Hearing more about that lately. But you memorialize something by putting it in writing and taking it as it comes. That way you don't forget the original thought. You can try to remember something from a long time ago and write it down, but the original thought is not the same, and therefore the original thought may be altered if you're trying to remember something and walk it back in time. So we're going to do that pretty much as soon as we wrap up the series. It'll be this Friday or the following, and then we'll be done on education for me and Swainbo when it comes to a dream utopian high school. But I'm going to say it, that is work. It is work. It may just seem like two guys having some fun about education, but these are two guys that have serious and concrete ideas and solutions. Remember the genesis of this show, fact-based, issue-oriented. We are ultimately solution-driven as a program. So what Swainbo and I are doing are providing you with solutions and answers to all the things you may ask, maybe not all, but to many of the things, maybe the large issues that you have about what a high school should or should not be. And maybe it doesn't all flesh out. Maybe we don't get to every single thing that you might want to ask, but we are available for you. And you could always message, and I'll do my best to give you an adequate answer to answer the questions you may have about, just in general, anything to do with the high school. That's where I taught. I did do some elementary and middle school, but my wheelhouse obviously was and is high school, even if I'm not in the classroom as much anymore. All right, so got a packed program for you tonight. We're going to discuss Venezuela. Again, something that I've not gotten to because, I'm going to say this. I've gotten plenty of messages from you guys. We are on only 3 nights for now. We will scale up eventually, and we'll do multiple, maybe even multiple shows that are on one day. But eventually going back to a full set program where we're on a weekly basis, nightly, because there's just a lot to go over and a lot to cover. And I'm finding myself without the ability to adequately treat a lot of the topics of the day. Because I'm going to say this, a 1-hour program isn't adequate enough to cover some of the major issues that we're discussing in today's society. And then when you don't treat them adequately, you get sound bites, and you get one-liners, and you get headers. The problem is that those one-liners, headers, and sound bites are not solving problems and solutions, and we quite literally end up talking about them somewhere down the road. I mean, let's talk about the gun violence situation in places of worship or schools. Definitely haven't solved that problem. Some of you can be cynical and say it's never going to be solved, but damn it, we can make an attempt to try. So last thing before we get started, for those of you guys that are on, excuse me, the SuperMex Nation forum in the group, in the Facebook group, I'm just going to put out to you so we're clear. Monitor this weekend. I don't get to everything. I told you that I actually try to spend some time on the weekend with my family, but I'm noticing that, okay, there's more of you, and that is good. There's more of you engaging in topic and conversation. That is exactly what we want. What I will tell you directly, because this is the point that we're going, and my fault, all me, full disclosure on my end. I'll take the sword on this one, but there will be, and there are, and there will be, because I'm going to post them, there will be rules as to how you engage and how you discuss on the forum. Okay, because there have been more than a few instances where we begin to have, heated exchange, heated debate. And ladies and gentlemen, there's plenty of that all over the place. We're not going to be that. Okay, you state your point, you argue your point, but you keep it light on the individual and heavy on the issue or topic. That's where it goes. You want to be rabid and strong, I absolutely applaud you and defend you your right to do so, but make sure that you remember on the other end is an American that you're discussing with. Because I'll say this right now, I saw this before I came, or earlier today, and I didn't get a chance to look at anything over the last 5 or 6 hours. Okay, whether we like it or not, we do have media. Technically, we're kind of media, me and the homeboy Crow here. We're media in a sense. We're trying to deliver good information to you. We're not evil. We're not trying to harm you or do something or lead you down a road that is not good for you. We've said that since day one. Okay, are there media and mediums out there that are not doing good work or shoddy or being biased? Absolutely, absolutely. But I'm going to say this, and I want to make this crystal clear. The minute you start making the media the enemy, that group the enemy, this group the enemy, damn it, then why the hell did I serve this country, and why do others serve when we've got enemies in our backyard, right at home? We don't need any more enemies at home. We need to start working the damn together. We got plenty of enemies in this world that would like nothing more than to grease the United States of America and rub us the hell out. So what you need to do is wake up, grow up, and yes, I'm being a little critical and harsh of you, okay, but you need to wake up and grow up and remind yourself that we live in this country and we have obligation to at least work together, if not provide some measure of civility, some measure of courtesy, some measure of respect for each other. Not everybody's an enemy in this country. And more importantly, you shouldn't make them an enemy in this country. And I know that right now, and this is my last thought on the media thing. They go, the media is the enemy. You know what? Why don't we make politicians that lie the enemy? Because there's plenty of that. Yeah. And right now, it's politicians that are saying the media is the enemy on both sides. So be critical. I did tell you guys to watch that White House Correspondents' Dinner. It was a damn good look at what journalism is supposed to be. So I'm going to say it again for full record. There are some media and mediums that are clearly biased and trying to do it their way, and maybe they're just wrong. By the way, I've got to say that about, okay, we did one too. I'm going to get to that in a second. That could be wrong. Not everybody's 100% perfect, and they're not going to get it right all the damn time. But the minute we start assuming one sector of our population is our enemy, then we're in a load of trouble, ladies and gentlemen. And we are in a load of trouble. You do with that what you will on the left or the right. I really don't give a damn at this point. But you need to be cautious and critical in actualizing that kind of information and putting out to the public that we have enemy within our own borders. We have enough damn enemies throughout the damn world. We don't need them within our own damn situation. We don't need them with my neighbor next door. Everybody clear? Outstanding. That's where we go with it. So one thing to clear up, a young gal on air, I posted, I want to say about a week and a half ago about, during the synagogue shooting, that there was another guy who I think he's already been caught, and he was stopped. He was going to, what I was told, and again, I'm not perfect either. I was told, or what I got, and it was a media outlet actually. It wasn't one of the major ones, but it was like a local news station. And it was said that he was going to a white supremacist rally. The reality was he was going to, and I think it was specific, a Trump rally. So don't mesh and mingle those, okay? And I'm putting it on air so we're clear about it. It was not a white supremacist rally, it was a Trump rally. I think it actually feeds my line of logic back then, which was you're going to have people that attack places of worship, you're going to have people that attack Muslims, Jews, being anti-Semitic, and then the reaction is going to be you may have people of Semitic background that attack non-Semitic. You get the point? Because it's going back and forth now, and people are retaliating against each other. That's a problem. So on-air correction, thank you to Katie Diane for pointing that out. We will always make every attempt to be factual, so much so that I will even get back on and say that I was wrong about something. I didn't get the accurate information. It has been corrected. But again, be mindful. We have enough damn enemies on this planet. We don't need to be making more of the ones that we already have. So in the forum tonight or over this next few days, I will post and publish the rules for how we operate within that group. I will say this, we are quite different than a lot of other groups that I'm in, where the language, the division, the argumentation, and the disagreement gets to an ugly place in a hurry. That will not happen in SuperMex Nation, because I will cut it off myself. You're not taking shots at individuals. If you're going to stress your point, then you do so without making it more than just an argument about intellect and intellectual material. Don't make it personal. We absolutely don't need any more of that right now in this country. We got way too damn much of it as is. That's my thought. That's my opener. And now let's get down to some business with my brother Crow here. We got to talk about Venezuela. What's up, homeboy? How's the weekend?
Good, good, good.
Wonder Twin Powers.
Activate.
Wonder Twin. So what we've got is Venezuela. Venezuela. I have not commented, and I've kind of left it open because, it's one of those things where I'm going to say this. I generally thought that it wouldn't be that big a deal, and it's actually ended up being more of a big deal than it needed to be. Mm-hmm. And so here we are now, and it's not gone away. And, when I say big deal, it's like big deal to who? Big deal to us or big deal to the people of Venezuela? Clearly, it's a big deal to the people of Venezuela because we've seen people already hurt, harmed, killed, etc. That's not good anywhere. And we can say, like, that's not our business, not our backyard. I get that argument. But I will say, like, generically, people are Christian right up until it affects them personally, right? But, it does hurt me to see that, that people don't have the ability to walk a street without getting run over or whacked out. That's a problem. So you tell me, what's your take on what we see so far?
Well, it's interesting that you brought up the media itself, and by the way, we're both correcting that because I also had said the same thing. And you know where I got it from? I think probably a similar place that Mex did. I got that thing about the white supremacist situation.
For me, it was a local. Yeah, it wasn't like one of the major ones.
I saw it on CNN too.
Oh, really?
So that's where I got it from. And then the correction came from the local LA station. I think it was KTLA.
KTLA corrected, yeah.
So that lets you know that, when Mex brought up the whole media issue, and it ties definitely into reporting about Venezuela and what our attitudes become as the result of reporting, you could see that by the media at the national level. Fox News said the same thing, that this Islamist radical who was converted from being a regular military man to being a Muslim that's ready to kill was going to a white supremacist rally. That changes the game. If it's a place where, I don't really like those guys either, people disregard it. Now, if it had said from the get-go it was really a regular political rally, I would hope that Americans would be like, no. Of all stripes, left, right, whatever, say no. We don't bomb political rallies.
Yeah.
We just don't do that in America.
That's the problem.
You know.
Yeah, so I'll jump on with you on that because it's like this. You know, there are some norms that we should have that are being stepped all over right now.
Absolutely.
And those issues are quite literally, you know, reaching into some other areas that are not good, that could be bad. When you have, when you make exception, basically. You make the exception that, well, if it's not you or if it's somebody that you're not with or you're other than that person, then it becomes okay because it's not in your backyard or it's not with your people.
Exactly.
And I'm going to be clear, that's not okay.
It's a form of othering. It's where, and people do it all the time, where they say, this group is the other, they're the exception.
Correct.
We can do what we want to this group because we don't like their views, we don't like what they look like, we don't like what they, you know, what they're pushing. So we can violate standards of practice,
right?
In the way we do things,
provided it doesn't
right.
harm or hurt us. And I've said this, you know, since day one. An injustice to one is an injustice to all. I absolutely believe that.
That old phrase that an eye for an eye leads everybody blind. You know, you start attacking this group, they attack back. You know, and before you know it, it's just a full-fledged
and that's quite the
bad
problem.
situation.
So we did on-air correction.
Right,
shout out to Katie for bringing that up and addressing it now because I don't like being wrong. You know, and I'm not being hard-headed or you know, arrogant.
Well, if anything, this shows
don't like
that
being wrong.
The SuperMex Nation is a great place because there's honesty here. You don't. CNN.
I don't know how to do dishonest.
CNN still has not corrected that. Fox News still has not corrected it. I checked it before we came over.
Well, because it's easy to just like. Here's the thing.
Yeah,
you say something. You say something, and this isn't just news, by the way. It's a lot of politicians. You just say something, and if it's wrong, you don't correct it if it suits your need, and you move forward because most people in the netherverse will find a way to move on to something new. So my point is that injustice never gets corrected, that wrong never gets corrected, and then we end up by extension all being wrong. Right. And that's not good.
And tying into Venezuela, I was like, okay, let me look at different perspectives before I cast a judgment because, you know, we all have our gut feeling of what we should do on anything based on our own political thoughts and let's do a point of agreement. You know.
So I'm going to see if you agree with this. I'm just saying this. Everything. A point of agreement. I think that in a funny way that I've seen both people on the left and the right agree on is like, oh, we shouldn't get involved in Venezuela.
Yeah,
I've actually had some friends on my left saying, well, let those people do their thing. I've had people on the right say that's not our business because we shouldn't be like spending our time and troops over there.
A lot of people on the right voted for now President Trump partially or wholly because they were like, look, I don't agree with him on a lot of other things domestic, but I do agree no more foreign wars.
Well, the foreign wars thing.
Trump made it, you know, Trump made it clear that during the campaign, you look at nearly everything he said was pull out of this country, stop wasting trillions here, no more CIA garbage over there. So Trump's base is 50% anti-war, and then you look at the Democrat base, half of Democrat voters, nearly half, voted for Bernie Sanders, who is also anti-war. So there's a convergence where
and the funny thing is like
right-wing and left-wing populist movement.
On the right side, you know, because this is something that, you know, and I won't say, you know, we joked about this, right? I'm establishment, or I'm deep state. You know, I love joking about that. I never thought I was deep state. I thought I was shallow state. You know,
shallow state. That's good. I like that, shallow state.
I thought I was shallow state. But here's the thing: is that you know, you because I heard this when I came home. You know, when I
deep words, shallow. I'm just right state.
when I was in the Army and I came back, you know, now in my family we don't think of military or foreign policy in and I'll say this, in a left or right term. We don't see it that way in our family because, you know, just about everybody in our family serves in some way. We just look at it as duty, honor, you know, country and responsibility. But when I came home, you know, I heard more of my, you know, definitely my friends that were in their 20s when I first got out. And they were all about, you know, I'm not into wars. I'm not into, because we had just got out and I was in during the first Persian Gulf War back then.
Yes.
And they believe that we shouldn't be sending our boys over there. And and I'm going to say this, I laugh because I'm one of those boys.
Right.
And I said, did anybody ever ask me? Now, I'm not a warmonger in the traditional sense, like, oh, I want to go fight, right? I want to go fight. But I believe in country, I believe in service, and I believe there are things, whether we like it or not, that our country needs to do. So, and I'm going to run this back for a second, but there are things that we need to do that ultimately are in our interest. and this is kind of why I'm a little conflicted on the Venezuela thing, and maybe that's why I haven't gotten to it, because I wanted something to flesh out so it can be specific, because we have way too much gray area in our political discussion right now. There's so much gray. But I'm viewing this from the perspective of, here's an example. So you're right about, the Trump base that was unique to me, because if you say 50%, I don't know what the number is.
Whatever,
I don't think we all do. But let's say arbitrary for the sake of argument that it's 50%.
Certainly.
Okay. If 50% say that we should be in no foreign wars and that we should not get involved in any other countries, I understand that. I do get that. And the rationale being that if we're spending less money abroad on military, then we're probably pulling more money home and spending more on domestic, which in essence could be, if you're spending, I think I pointed this out, and I said this to you too, that, after the first Persian Gulf War, when we began base closures and shutdowns, then there was more money that was capable of being or used back home. And then out of those, the Reagan years into Bush, because the Cold War was a very long period, by the way.
Right,
so
yes.
after the Reagan buildup, and all presidents prior to him to build up to that, and then the fall of the Berlin Wall, the fall of the communist regime, the fall of the of Soviet Socialist Republics, USSR, that we don't have anymore, not in that form anyway. But with all of that, you walk it back and you're looking, and it's like, then boom, we had a booming explosion, economically in the 90s. We had good years in the 90s economically. There's some rationale that was because we have less money expended overseas, less troops deployed in other countries, less money going out to other countries. And so that rationale does work, because the average American can say to themselves, if we're not spending our money over there, and I'm talking about military now, just military,
right,
not econ and other things. But it does make sense that if we're not expending as much in bases and troops, et cetera, then more of that money can go home, and that can benefit the average person.
In the 90s, a good thing, too, was the government still thought about balancing a budget. We had 3 years where they actually balanced the budget.
That ain't even funny.
I've always said, and it's always been proven true, I'm not bragging or anything, but I'm sure Mex would agree with this, whenever the Democrats are in power, the Republicans complain about the debt. The debt goes crazy. Whenever the Republicans have the presidency or power, the Democrats do that. And neither of them actually do anything about it.
Yeah, the crazy thing is, like,
they don't.
We have the largest debt right now.
Right.
And the crazy thing is, like, people aren't even talking about it.
Yeah, usually Republicans are deficit hawks, and they're out to lunch on this one. And this, the whole Venezuela thing, I don't believe that we should send our military there. That should be off the table altogether. Because not only because it's not the right fit.
Well, let's have a hard discussion on this, because
I just don't. It would be like a square peg for a round hole.
Yeah. I'm not disagreeing. I'm not disagreeing. Here's the issue, and this is why it's a problem. Is because, what are we going to do? Drop boots on the ground in every country that has a disputed election?
Certainly.
In theory, we cannot do that. Here's where the rub comes. And now, I'm going to wear the history teacher hat. There is such a thing as a Monroe Doctrine. Most people don't understand it, don't know it.
1821.
Don't understand the intent of it. But here's the thing, and I'm going to give you guys, like, original thought on a large scale now, because this is what I see. I think we've kind of fleshed out, that my mind politically always goes to the macro when it comes to who we are, where we are. It's just who I am. I don't start at the base in terms of, Joe America, and that sounds ugly because I do care, but my feeling is that there are people that should know that better than I am.
And keeping the Russians and Chinese and others out of, right?
So my mind goes to that.
Okay,
my mind goes to that other end.
I would agree. The only thing I would say is I think American politicians violated the spirit of that years ago by letting China invest so heavily in our country. We're not even keeping them out of our country these days.
Well, yeah.
China is going to own the West Coast.
Well, Monroe
in 20
Doctrine
years
is.
at the rate they're
Monroe
going.
Doctrine at its inception, it was meant to be more military, physical.
Yeah, keep them out,
not economy.
Right.
And trust me, I'm not justifying the China in our economy thing.
So
by no means.
Exactly. So unfortunately, our politicians today, I get it. We just don't have James Monroes anymore, and we don't have Abe Lincolns, and we don't have
a damn James Madison talking about the Federalists.
Yeah, we don't have FDRs. We don't have JFKs. We don't even have Ronald Reagans anymore. It's unfortunate, And
Well, it is unfortunate, but here's the thought.
You know-
we've been going down that road a lot. I don't mean just you and I, but in general, I see the country
we
going down that road.
understand where we're heading, and
No, I
we
get
don't
that.
like it.
Here's the
You know,
thing:
I'll say
the
that.
country
But-
goes down that road and
Right.
says, "Well, we don't have, James Madison. We don't have Alexander Hamilton with the Federalist Papers describing, separation of powers. We don't have that anymore. The problem is that we accept that we don't have that.
Yes.
That's the problem.
So, yeah.
Because then it's quite literally on us, the populace, is that if we accept that and we do nothing about it, then we shouldn't be crying and complaining about what we don't have and how our politicians are weak, because we're not holding their feet to the fire.
It's like George Carlin. You guys should check this out after the show. There's a funny skit, and it's real, as can be. Carlin did one on politicians. It's only 3 minutes long. He said basically why he doesn't vote. And by the way, I'm not encouraging you not to vote, but I understand Carlin's reasoning on this. He basically said everybody
But
complains
choosing
about,
not to vote is a right.
Right.
It's your right.
He was like, look, everybody complains about politicians. They say they suck, right? And he's like, where do you think these people come from? They come from American homes, American schools, American churches, American synagogues, American businesses, et cetera, et cetera. He's basically like, his thing was, if you have selfish people voting for, voting for government, you're going to get selfish politicians.
In essence, what
And
you're
that's
getting
what we
is
have had.
you're getting a magnification. And this
Yeah,
has always been my point.
Yes.
You are getting, as politicians, a magnification of who you are.
Yes,
Because
exactly.
if you don't vote for it directly, then it is what you allow.
Right. And Trump, look, President Trump, I like him on a lot of things, folks, and people know this from my posts. There's other things I criticize him on, just like any other president. He is a perfect personification of today's America. He's a reality show host type. I mean, am I right?
It's
though?
a reality show White House.
Yes. There's like half the cabinet positions aren't even filled right now. They've got interim people covering them, and Trump's like, "You're fired. Get out."
It's instability.
And now the economy is roaring. Great things are happening. Phenomenal growth, better than anybody anticipated. So the stock market loves Trump, which is good. All the other markets love him too. So hey, I like him there. I don't think he's being led properly on foreign policy though, because he's got John Bolton in there now.
You're taking my cue, because I've
Yes.
told you, I don't think the people
Yes.
around him are giving him good advice.
Folks, Bolton is the architect of the Iraq War. Why on earth would you have a guy who he knowingly misled us? Weapons of mass destruction. We know they were not there. That was made up. Even Trump during the campaign said there were no weapons of mass destruction. You look at the March 3rd, I believe it was, debate, March 2016, he hit Jeb Bush with that about your brother took us to war,
Right.
no WMDs, and he even said you guys lied, and he said you knew there were no weapons of mass destruction, yet you sent troops anyways.
Right.
That's a big, big indictment. Yet Trump has John Bolton, he's got Abrams, and he's got other people in there. These are the same guys that were architects of the Clinton,
so let's
Bush,
flesh this out.
Obama strategy.
I think we'll both agree that, because I've said it more and more, I'm really, really concerned, and I'm having some major issue with more than a few of his policies, because I don't think he has people around him that know what the hell they're doing or that have the best interests of this country.
Exactly.
I really don't.
I agree.
I don't. So I think we can generally agree on that. And I'm not saying the president's a bad guy.
No,
but
he can easily be misled. A lot of them
clearly.
The government
My
is
issue
huge.
He's got enough issues of his
Right,
own to
right.
deal with. You don't need people around you that are not going to give you sound advice that you're going to abide by. So I think here's the rub that we really have, and let's flesh this out like in black and white for our listener and our viewer. Okay, so what we do have for sure is that if I would say that the majority of America, and this is kind of a crazy confluence, what we have is a majority of America, because you have a far left and a far right group that, at least on the surface for this particular issue of Venezuela, agree that we should not be, definitely not troops.
Yes.
I think we would agree with that. I mean, if not, maybe because I'm a little hard, I was like, it always depends. I always have the option
look, I don't take anything off the table either. If I was in government, I would say, look, there is.
Okay, it is, but what I'm saying is, most
but
Americans don't want that option.
Right, and it's, I just don't see that it would work either. We're talking macro,
Again,
obviously here.
under current circumstances.
Now,
but
if we look at the micro on this.
So for just this one, so
go ahead.
No question that the I think we're safe to say that the majority of Americans on the surface would say we don't need to be Definitely not sending troops.
Right.
Definitely not getting super involved, and that means a lot of different things, but not getting involved with Venezuela. My friends that are a little further left, more Democrat, more green and other, they're more likely to say, and some of them have told me, that that's not our business. Let their people decide what their role is going forward in terms of their government. And generally, I mean, listen, it's freedom, right? It's freedom.
Well, yeah,
which is what our country's supposed to be about.
I look at it like with our base, okay, our foundation, our forefathers had to fight for their freedom. However, France supplied the money and the guns for our
And
revolution.
the ships.
Right. So that's a good model for what to do, in my opinion. It worked for us. We're 200 years later. We're still around. And a lot other nations.
What do you mean by model? What are you talking about?
For what should be done with other countries, what we could do. So take Venezuela. Let's just assume every negative thing. You know, I'm looking at news articles, and I've heard left and right say, look, you know, the election's illegitimate, blah, blah, blah. Well, let's just assume everything negative they say about Venezuela and the current Maduro government is true. I'll just say, submit it. Go ahead. Say it's not true. Or it is true, sorry. We should be, at most, supplying weaponry or whatever know-how.
Oh, you want to arm them?
Let them take their country.
Okay.
And look, if you have an organic kind of revolution.
Well, I'm not disagreeing. I'm trying to internalize something like that.
And not contrived by the CIA either, because we've seen the CIA's interventions in Latin America over the years. I studied them today just to get brushed up on them. I used to study them in college and whatnot. We have 100+ years of the CIA sending in, you know, special forces guys and Marines and whatnot for week-long things, coups and whatnot. And it was always for, you know, XYZ Corporation. They want their bananas for dirt cheap so they can bring them here and sell them.
Yeah.
They want their gas and oil, whatever, for dirt cheap so they can sell it here and make money. America's market, you know, is big. And South America has always been a great place to, you know, rob their economies blind,
right,
so that our economy can thrive. And I understand the power dynamics there, and I'm not one of these, I'm not some, you know, far leftist that's like, no, we never should do any of this ever. I understand that.
Do far leftists talk like that?
Some do.
I'm far left. I don't talk like that.
you want, well, yeah, you know, I join them too on certain protests. I'm with the far left on this one. You know, heck no, we don't go.
So I think that we're in agreement there. I think, like maybe I said, the majority, but I don't know. I have to stop it. Like here's why.
Although I wouldn't do it yet. I still have to assess it. You know what I'm saying, brother?
My thing is this. It's always been
guns. I want to know who I'm
for
giving
me.
guns to.
It's always been about you either do or you don't, because invariably what ends up happening is if you kind of half-step in something militarily, it's not a good recipe. And any decent commander worth their salt, right down to a sergeant in the trenches, will tell you we either in or not.
Right.
That's simple.
And you know, we talked about this a month ago, Afghanistan or Yemen, or, you know, there's a whole host of countries that are in a graveyard of pain and suffering because we didn't do it right. Not us, but our government. You know, you and I didn't get to vote on these things.
Right.
So, you know, Yemen, millions of people dead. Children. Remember we talked about the young children dead.
We did.
Dying. You know, it's horrific. Okay. Syria.
Incidentally, sidebar. You know, the president vetoed the resolution to stop sending money to Saudi Arabia so we can have those kids that are dead.
Trump is a super neocon now, okay? And I know his...
And I don't get that. So let's bring that back to center, because it is like it's Venezuela. This is what I was going to say.
Yes.
So I got asked a legitimate question today by a SuperMex Nation member. Didn't put it out on the forum because she didn't want to be attacked. She said she didn't want, like, I don't want to seem like I'm too far left, too far right. And I was like, okay, that's a good start. What is it? She was basically saying that, like, what she's seeing is that in one location, Venezuela, it's okay or not okay, and then in another location, it's the exact opposite. Meaning the foreign policy is not consistent, and it's not clear to people that we're treating all of these countries the same. So, for instance, if Trump's policy and his base elected him because we weren't going to involve ourselves in all these foreign attachments and quagmires, then why are we doing that in different places, like Saudi Arabia? You see my point?
Yes.
We're sending money to Saudi Arabia. We may be sending them our nuclear secrets. we're getting involved.
Isn't that a great idea? Nuclearize Wahhabis with nukes, buddy.
So them, and other countries.
20 years from now, when LA
them and other countries
blown up,
we're not. The
Nice.
point is that, and she's an average American. She doesn't have a bone to pick one way or the other.
Right.
She's not so concerned with the left or right thing. She's just concerned that if that's the intent, and here's what I'm going to say, it's always the same. If you tell me that we're not going to involve ourselves in any foreign wars or any attachments, then you need to do that across the board and not cherry pick just the ones you like, because that's what we have right now. It hasn't been consistent. It hasn't been stable. It's basically being like, okay, we're going to be okay to do that here, and then we'll go on air and justify it and not okay in another location.
One of the best comparisons I've heard for this, I forgot who told me, but it's been a minute. They, on Training Day with Denzel Washington's character, where he goes around, he robs the one house. The whole day he's trying to rob money to, right. He jacks that dope dealer. He's like, look, America has turned into Denzel Washington's character from Training Day. We're going around jacking and robbing other countries because we can, and we're in debt, massive, billions, trillions of dollars at different levels, and so we're sort of at that phase where we're just robbing and stealing
in a drunken state.
Yeah, we're robbing in a drunken state.
Oh,
Beastie Boys. Hey, I love that jam, man. I love that whole album. That album was.
But I think you get the point,
ever.
though, right? And I want our audience to get the point that we are not applying the foreign policy that. And I won't say we, because
it's not us as people.
I'll be on air and clear. I'll be on air and clear. I said early on, before the election was done, that Trump doesn't have a foreign policy strategy. He has a slogan.
He's going to wing it too.
It's real simple. He has a slogan: America first. I get that. What country doesn't want to be first within their own people?
If he would have kept to that, it would have been a good one. But he didn't.
Every country, no country stands up and says, "Okay, so
you first."
No, if you're Canada, if you're Canada, he's like America first. No, I mean it's really. I'm going to say this. I don't say this part, but it's dumb. Okay. I'm not saying the slogan because the intent of it is you're going to take care of your people.
If truth in advertising laws applied to politicians, then
all you're doing is feeding arguments.
He would have said Saudi Arabia, Israel, China, and about 4 other countries first, and then America.
Don't do that. Don't do that. So that's the problem. I think that we at the beginning of the hour I said that's the gray area that we have here. Okay, so
I'm not trying to beat up on Trump either, folks. I like him on
it's not even a beat up, but it's,
we got to throw some criticism at the king.
Listen,
right?
The king, did you say the king? Well, that's what he's trying to be, right? He's trying to be king.
I'll
remind you, we started this country because we didn't want a king. So anyway, let me backtrack. So what we've got right now is a failure to communicate. Can't help it. All right, so if you're going to apply that America first mentality, then you've got to apply it across the board with every country you deal with.
Yes.
And that's the problem, that is not the case with
that's
this
foreign policy. That's what a lot of people
policy.
hoped for, but that's not what they got.
That's not what we're getting.
And you know what? I would be willing
Incidentally, so we're still in Afghanistan.
Right.
And we're still in places that he said we would be out of. And I'm not holding him because, Obama said we'd be out of Afghanistan.
Exactly.
And we're still there.
Right.
So the point being is that foreign policy, ladies and gentlemen, is not an easy critter. The average American does not get foreign policy, understand foreign policy.
Right.
What they get is what's close to home.
With any military intervention as well, and he would know this firsthand, there's a lot of moving parts. A lot of things can go wrong. Now, I would say up until through Reagan, and remember Reagan and Ford and Carter, going back to Nixon, they all had the ghost of Vietnam, so that kept them at bay a bit. That kept them
gun shy.
Right.
A little leery.
And that was good. Not saying we should have got what happened to us in Vietnam, but it is what it is.
And it really was. It was about a decade. Now don't take me for gospel, but it was about a decade. It wasn't until like the late 70s, early 80s that we started getting involved again.
The next intervention, the next decent scale one was Bush Sr. Remember with Panama, he sent the Marines in to go after Noriega. Now that wasn't a major war.
Well, we had stuff during Reagan too. That's what I'm saying. About
absolutely.
10 years.
We had plenty of CIA ops there. I'm not saying that, but I'm talking about where let me rephrase it: a televised intervention. We didn't see a lot of that.
I remember that. Yeah.
But you get into the Bush era, first Bush, 89, 90, whenever it was. I think looking in retrospect, Bush was warming us up for the idea that we will be sending troops in a lot of places. You know, and he was smart though in some ways. I'll give him credit. He said, "We're doing everything limited. We're not making a new Vietnam." And that's
and he was an old CIA guy.
Right. He did that with Noriega. He did that with Iraq and Kuwait, the Gulf War, which Mr. SuperMex was a part of. You go fast forward, our frame of reference after 9/11 was we win wars again. We won in Iraq. We won in Kuwait. We kicked, whose tail in the Gulf War. We decimated them and we made them look bad. We only lost 500 people.
Yeah, and I think the problem.
And that was our frame of reference.
Yeah, the problem with that frame of reference is this: is that we don't win traditional wars the same way anymore.
Yes.
And so to the American public, it's hard to say, "Oh, we won that war," because nobody in their right mind in this country. And I'm talking about the average. So it boils down to the average American. What does the average American take as gospel or understand? No average American is going to stand up and say, "Oh, yes, we won the war in Iraq. Yes, we won the war in Afghanistan." Nobody's saying that. That's where the problems lie, and that's where foreign entanglements, arise. So back to Venezuela. I mean, I'm in a tough spot personally. I mean, I really am. I'm looking at this because when I like I said, I chuckle when I hear people say our boys don't want to go over there, or our boys won't do this. Don't send our boys. Like some of our boys would like to go fight. That's a fact, because I wanted to go to war when I was in, not because I wanted to go warmonger, but because if my country needed me, I wanted to go. Yeah. So it's an irrationality that most people don't get, because if you haven't strapped up and run around with an M16, it's a different thought. Definitely when you're in service, that's a different mentality. But here's the thing, and this is where it gets entangled, and this is the problem that I'm having with this, like right now. I want to give every president, the benefit of the doubt, because, and I'm going to say this on air, ladies and gentlemen, the reality is that you and I, Brother Crow and myself, KP on production, Elena, the superstar out there, where'd she go? She doesn't like being around us anymore. She likes hanging with the younger dudes. I get it. But nobody right now can legitimately look at this and say that, I'm clear and I know exactly what's coming. I know where it goes. I know what's happening in Venezuela. I know that we're not going to do this or that. That's not the truth, because what we're looking at right now is here's the thing, we almost can't put troops there. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying, like, for the sake of argument, I'm not saying it's right to do so or not. But my point is, we can't, because there are Russian troops in the damn joint, in our backyard. That's a problem for me, and I think you understand why. Okay, the Russians, people are like, "Oh, this guy's got to think for Russians." I do. I'm a Cold Warrior. I served during the Cold War. So those were my enemy, and I'm probably going to die thinking that the Russian government, not the Russian people, by the way, because Russian people are like regular people in other countries, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but the Russian government definitely doesn't mean us any good. And here's the thing: we almost went to war over the Cuban Missile Crisis.
See, that's an interesting one. That Kennedy's strategy might be one to use now.
Well, then that's why I bring it. Here's my thing. Because I'm a Kennedy guy. All right, I'm a Kennedy guy.
I don't think China could take us on, or Russia. Certainly not Russia. I don't think China can either.
At least not
this point.
Well, at least not yet.
So,
and I'm going to scare the hell out of people.
On the naval end, on the naval end, I watched a video a while back. Nobody contends
with our Navy, even though China's building one.
Right. Our military men have said that 10, 20 years from now is when we have to really be concerned about China's Navy. They're still building up. And
then I'll drop that 5 years, because
maybe 5. They don't really know, but they're saying that, hey, we're going to have a face-off at some point.
Here's what I was going to say. I'm giving a larger concept, and I have to break it down so you guys get it. But here's the thing: I'm being a little forgiving of the president because he's the president. Okay, not that he's Donald J. Trump, but he's the president, the office.
The office.
Okay, so the office. I'm being forgiving of the office because they know things, or they get things on a daily basis. They read their brief. They get intel that we can't possibly have and we can't possibly know. There's a reason why we're still in Afghanistan. I don't know it. Do you? It's a rhetorical question. You can't know. I can't know.
My best guess would be $1 trillion worth of, forgot the mineral that's there, but it goes to all of our cell phones.
Yeah, so here's the thing. So, and again, like I said, a rhetorical question, right? I'm asking you because I know the answer. The answer is simple. We don't know. The American people don't know. Yeah. So we're still in Afghanistan, even though the president said he would pull us out of everything, we would not be in anything.
Right.
That's not the case. So you can't say, and I'm going to say this, you can't say, oh, he lied about that. Why? On the surface, it looks like he lied about
No,
it.
he didn't. That's not a lie because
It's not a lie because
you can
once
say a lot of things in a campaign.
Once you're in he lies
Right.
about everything else, but not on this, because you can't know what he knows. You can't know the intel that he has, and you can't know the problems that arise because we're still in Afghanistan. And if on the surface he says that he believes in no foreign entanglements and we shouldn't be sending our troops and our money to other countries, then we should be out of Afghanistan.
Well, basically, look, his personal view may be, hey, I don't want us to be in these places. But there's a big difference when you get put into that office.
Once you're in the office.
And you have all those
and you get the intel
and people telling you this is what our real situation is.
Yeah. So
this is what's going
that's
on.
Where, okay, so that's where I'm being
pressure
forgiving.
on your behind, so to speak.
So that's where I'm being forgiving with this. And,
I wouldn't say he lied, misled, or anything. He probably really believes that, hey, I really don't think we should be doing this stuff.
We're there.
But he can believe all he
here's
wants.
The
They're
thing.
going to tell him
We're
here's what
still
we're
in
doing.
Afghanistan because it's
Right.
not what he believes. It's what he has to do. That's a fact. There are things that take place that you almost have no choice but to go along with because the consequences of not would be far more devastating. And I don't mean just militarily, but economically and on a world scale in that region, by the way. So I'm being a little forgiving because there are things that you and I can't know out in the world. General public America, we can't know everything that the president knows. So even though he says that we shouldn't be involved in anything, we're still in Afghanistan, and I don't see him pulling us out anytime soon.
You know,
But hold on, let me apply it to Venezuela.
Yes.
The problem is that it's not being like dropped down in a cookie cutter fashion where like we're doing that here, we're doing that here, we're doing that here, we're doing that here, and it's the same policy. The problem that people are telling me that they have is like it's not consistent. It's one or the other, then it changes over here and it changes over there. And that's why I said I don't think he's getting good advice. I think he's having people tell him. And now, and I'll say this because like the Russian thing, right? There are Russian troops in Venezuela. There are Russian troops in Venezuela right now. I mean, who in the hell here, other than me, maybe nobody, but who the hell here other than me would be okay with sending troops to Russia?
By the way,
to Russian
that,
troops.
Israel has
Nobody
sent
wants to
400
do that.
plus Mossad agents. They sent them about 3 weeks ago to Venezuela.
Well, that's good for them. But I'm talking. Let's stay
But
on.
it's
Stay on
just,
point.
The point being is that Venezuela must have some real strategy, as Bush would say, because why would Russia, China, us, Israel, top 5 countries basically, probably the UK too, I don't know about that one. Why would we send our intel people there? Venezuela's sitting on a pot of gold.
Look, it's a very important. It is oil, and it's significant.
I would imagine so.
It's a very important and significant Latin America, South American in specific country, and we have interest there. But I'm going to say it again. There are Russian troops in Venezuela right now. And that's why I started the show with the Monroe Doctrine. What is that anymore? There is no Monroe Doctrine. We have people, and I'm going to give you guys the macro for this. Watch this. On a macro scale, and pay attention because this is really, really important. On a macro scale, Putin gobbled up the Crimea. Putin has entanglements, as we see them anyway,
No, we have entanglements.
all over the damn planet.
Sure.
And now he's got them in our backyard, just to our south. And yes, it is our backyard. It's the Monroe Doctrine. And we are literally quite, I mean, what I see on a macro scale, and not everybody's going to get this, but I'm going to say it loud because it's on air and it's for the record. On a macro scale, we are, in essence, receding, pulling back, becoming more insular. And what's happening is Putin is gobbling up more and more resource on this planet.
No, you know what though? I'll say this.
That's a fact.
Remember with the Cuban Missile Crisis, it didn't get reported, but we know now. We found out a few years ago that.
Can you imagine back then?
Well,
people would be crying fake news.
Probably. Kennedy made that deal where we pull nukes out of Turkey. Remember? That was the side deal. That was the backdoor deal. We could eat. I'm pretty sure that if we told Putin, okay, look, we will pull our nukes and our people, our NATO people, out of the Ukraine, or out of Belarusia and all the other former Soviet republics that we decided to put our garbage into. And I'm going to say it like that because back in the day with Putin and Yeltsin, Bush Senior
I'm
and
gonna hold
Clinton.
you. Don't
Senior,
say garbage.
Bush Senior.
Hold on. I'm gonna tell you why.
I don't like it because look.
I'm gonna tell you why.
Okay, our stuff. Bush Senior and Clinton promised.
Hold your train of thought because this is real world shit. This is real world
stuff.
Sorry, stuff.
Stuff.
This is real world. Okay, so not even 2.5 years ago, one of mine was in Latvia on the Russian border. So
Yeah.
that's why I say don't say garbage.
No, our materials.
Because I'm going to tell you why.
Troops. Our troops are just pawns of a
because
big,
that young man is like salt of the earth.
Yeah,
he's
absolutely.
like super American.
Yeah, well, we love that guy.
So go ahead.
That's little SuperMex. Okay, look. Yeltsin and Putin were promised by Bush Sr., Clinton, etc., that we would not put nukes and other NATO stuff inside their former republics on the agreement that if we didn't do that, they would not try to retake those republics. Russia has kept their end of that deal, with the exception of Crimea.
Okay, I noticed you throw in the exception.
With the exception of Crimea.
Okay, so in my political world, you know what I'll say? He didn't.
Well, he took
Crimea.
But we also went in and put nukes on his doorstep in the Ukraine. That was a former Soviet republic. That was part of the USSR. That's not Eastern Europe like Poland, Bulgaria, Romania. That's different. We told them we would stop it at the old Russian Soviet border and not proceed in further into his backyard. We told that to Yeltsin and Putin both. And our government lied about that because they fully intended to do it the whole time. They just lied to the Russian government about that. That is part of warmongering. Now, but what does that do, though, for today's discussion? That allows us some leeway to get them to get out of our hemisphere without a war. You pull out of Venezuela. You also pull out. We can even throw Crimea in. Get out of Crimea, too. We will pull back to the Eastern European border. We can pull a Kennedy.
Okay, I'm chuckling. And listen, I don't want to be disrespectful.
I'm throwing an idea,
but that ain't going to happen.
Well, okay, yes, but at the same time, we have to. I believe we need to start negotiating this stuff because we are not going to win this.
It ain't going to happen. I mean, I guess here's the ugly part that I watched. This is why I was like, okay, I need to get to Venezuela because we haven't done it, and it's about time. I watched it the weekend. Mike Pompeo acknowledged that there were Russian troops in Venezuela. Yeah. And Trump went on there and said Vladimir Putin told him that there's nothing going on in Venezuela from Russia. And I'm like, what the hell? They can't even get on the same sheet of music in their own office. And you think they're gonna negotiate Crimea and Venezuela?
Well, look, Pompeo.
That's a stretch.
Pompeo is a deep state figure.
All right, without the deep state, seriously.
He's a neocon warmonger.
You know what? But he told the damn truth.
I know this. I know, but you never know what him and Trump.
You sound like you're making an excuse. Bottom line
is,
he told the truth.
My view
there are Russian troops in Venezuela.
A third view from either Trump or Pompeo. Pompeo wants pretty much a war. Trump wants nothing.
Well, let me back up.
Smart.
You know what I want? I want the damn truth. I want them to be on the same sheet of music within their own office.
You never know, though. Those two could be playing a game. Pompeo could be telling Trump, "I want you to throw this out."
Well, then that's pretty damn sorry because it's screwing with the American public.
We don't know, though. We just don't, like you said, we don't know what they know about Afghanistan. We don't know if they're playing a game.
Here's what I do
used to say stuff that was off the page of the CIA, too.
Oh, man. Listen, he didn't have his Secretary of State contradicting what he said directly.
Him and Clinton were not on the same page with Libya.
You're going to go there. Okay. Bottom line is, let's apply it to this right now. There are Russian troops in Venezuela. Okay.
Yeah.
Putin did take the Crimea.
Okay.
He's gobbling up commitments throughout the damn world. And what are we doing? We're sitting there on the back end dealing with, and I'm going to say this, a reaction.
But
we are reacting.
Guaido doesn't have any even popular support. I saw that video. CNN made it sound like Guaido talks to a big audience. I saw the cell phone cameras from people there. There was 50 people at his little, I'm retaking the government garbage. It's what it is. It's propaganda. CNN and Fox News both portray this as, look at this popular support. Whereas Maduro and his boys, and I hate communists, by the way, and I hate socialists too. I don't like socialists. I don't like communists. I don't like Nazis. I don't like fascists, any of these people.
You got a lot of hate. You got a lot of hate in the system.
Hey, my grandfathers and great uncles didn't fight these people for nothing.
Mine didn't either, but I don't hate everybody.
Yeah, well,
I can't.
I don't mind them as long as they're not governing me.
I've been on the other end of hate for a lifetime. I know what that is.
As long as they're not governing me, I love them. Okay, just don't govern me.
So here's the thing. Let me wrap this up because we're running out of time.
There's no popular support for this guy Guaido. He's a fabricated figure from the CIA.
Look, I'm not saying there is.
And so what are we supposed to do if we can't?
So here's the thing. What are we supposed to do? Look, I don't got $1 million answer. What I do know is, like, in general, people don't want us involved in there. What I'm saying that, people need to start taking a hard look at ourselves because what's going on right now, and I'm going to say it, And I'm gonna be able to, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and God willing, if I last longer than that, I'll be able to go back to this show and say, I warned people that Putin, not the Russian people, but Putin is gobbling up the planet right now. And we're reacting to what Putin is doing.
We're gobbling it up too.
Jeff, you're making excuses.
Just different areas.
You're making excuses.
Oh, I'm not.
Not in Venezuela.
Why don't we stop
not in the Crimea.
I don't. We'll have to talk about this another time. But
we will.
I don't see how we stop them though.
Okay, there you go. Again, we don't have. I'm going to tell you what. We don't have. We don't have the damn will anymore.
Thank you.
We don't have the will.
We have a lot of our country supports him and supports the socialist government in Venezuela.
Well, the president. I'm going to say it. You know what? That's not my job. That's the president's job. He better get a damn policy to get this mess squared away. And I don't care if you're left or right and you don't like what I say or you like what I say. That's a fact.
No,
that's why we pay.
I agree that it needs to be solved, brother.
That's why. That's why we elect people. We elect them to solve the big problems. We elect them to keep us number one on the planet. And it isn't. I'm going to say this, and some of you guys may not like this, but it isn't by disappearing all over the planet and coming back and hiding in the United States, maybe behind a wall, and just saying, oh, the world's going to be great, we're just going to hide out here. Because that's not how we got to be number one in the world, by the way.
In many ways, you know what, I'll say this, Trump inherited a bad, terrible foreign policy situation from Bush and Obama that was very reminiscent of what Obama inherited with the economy from Bush and Clinton. He got a bad economy that he had to deal with for 8 years, Obama did. Trump inherited a bad economy, or excuse me, bad foreign policy situation from them, those two, maybe even those three. And just like Obama said, hey, hope and change, a nice little slogan, that he was going to fix this, and he didn't. Trump said, America first, as in,
and he said he was going to fix it.
I'm going to fix it.
And he's not fixed it.
And he can't fix it. I don't
think
he's
he
not
can.
Fixed it. I don't think he can do that.
That's kind of my point to you, and that's why I'm getting a little heated here. But
see, we always come back to a point of agreement.
I want a damn answer. I want a damn response, because I'm not the president of the United States. But you know what? If I were, you would. I'm going to say this on air. I definitely wouldn't have a damn Secretary of State disagreeing with me on air, and I wouldn't have a Secretary of State pushing a counter agenda to what I believe. I would stand up and say, this is what I believe. This is not going to happen. Mr. Putin, get your mess out of my damn hemisphere. That's where I'm at.
See, and I like that, and we can agree to.
You get the hell out of my hemisphere, or you know what I'll do? I'm gonna go a step further. Watch this.
I think Kennedy's a good example.
Here's my last thought for that tonight. All right, this is where I'm at, Mr. Putin. You get the hell out of my hemisphere, or I'm gonna go and I'm gonna take the Crimea.
SuperMex for president.
I'm gonna take the Crimea. That's what I'm gonna do.
It's our first Latino president right here.
Yeah, I'm getting a little angry, a little agitated, because all I hear is excuses and I don't see solutions and answers. Then what ends up happening is Joe America, Jane America wonders why we don't have a set, clear policy. We're in trouble when you have people on the far left and far right agreeing on things that we shouldn't be doing. I don't know if that's a problem or not. You guys get the point. All right, that's our show for this evening. Venezuela's clearly not done, ladies and gentlemen. I think that's obvious. You know where I'm at. I want an answer. I want a solution. More importantly, and I will say this, some of you guys are not old enough. For those of you that are younger, there was a time in this country when we did not get stepped on and we did not accept our major enemy in our backyard. In our backyard, look up the Monroe Doctrine, because clearly we haven't done enough history to know our own history of what is acceptable and not acceptable as an American people and as an American government. Our foreign policy, and I think I will say this, there is no strategy. It's a slogan. We need some damn strategy right now, because all I see on a macro scale, now watch this, on a macro scale, is we're getting gobbled up all over the place and we're pulling back, while other countries, Russia, China, and now damn even Saudi Arabia, go figure that, are starting to express and flex their muscles all over the place. We may not pay for it right now, ladies and gentlemen, but we damn sure will pay for it in the future. Or maybe some of you are thinking, well, I'm not going to pay for it, but my kids, his daughter, others will be paying for the mistakes we make right now in the future. You have it on record here for posterity. SuperMex Nation is out. I'll see you guys on Wednesday.